Stay frosty. Hello and welcome to The Songs That Made Us, the podcast that likes to rock out with its cock out, or we did do up until about 3 months ago when a policeman told us actually that's not allowed and we had to spend a considerable amount of time in prison and pay restitution. We apologise once again, Mrs. Mathers, on the number 3 Mothcombe Walk. We didn't mean to rock out with our cock out right in front of you.
What?
Sorry, it's a legal statement we had to read for...
Where have I been? Did I... So I feel like if this happened, what must have happened is that I just got into a fit of didn't know how to deal with it, didn't know how to deal with prison, so I've just doped myself up and now I can't remember it. And you fed me this alternate reality where actually there's been a worldwide pandemic, and that's why, and actually I've just been indoors all this time. That's what I thought was going on.
Can you not actually see that you are in a jail right now?
Oh shit! Fuck,
Charlie's just a warden.
Oh man, I was wondering why it was so dark in here, where these bars came from.
So as always, I am the big muffin himself, Mr. Jake.
The big muffin?
Yeah, the big muffin, and with me is my slightly smaller cupcake. Connor.
I feel like I'm already in this alternate reality in this podcast where, because you said Big Muffin with such confidence that, that's always been your nickname.
Yeah, I said it as though for each of the 17 or 18 podcasts before, I have always referred to myself as that.
Completely. I don't know where I've dropped in.
Well, you're the little cupcake. We've already established that.
Of course.
So, this week, as promised, we are finally back with part 3, and a pear tree, of the Iron Maiden.
Yes, it's now Anthology. A trilogy.
Yeah, it's now a trilogy. It's then going to go the way of Aliens and go to a quad, and I was
thinking Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which is still going to be bad.
Well, to be fair, part 4 is No Prayer for the Dying and Fear of the Dark, so... Yeah. It's iffy.
Iffy, up and down.
Well,
I like Fear of the Dark.
At this point, well, currently we're covering between Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son of the Seventh Son.
Yeah.
We're going to have a quick look at the World Slavery Tour, and then we're also going to look on the Seventh Son Tour at the back of that as well. So this period, we've still got the golden lineup.
Yes.
Adrian, Dave Murray on guitars, Nico McBrain on the drums, Steve Harris on the bass, Bruce Dickinson on vocals.
Yeah.
So part 4, that changes.
Completely.
No, yeah, part 4 it changes.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Part 3, however, we are still in the good stuff.
Yes, and for me personally, and this is controversial because obviously we've already done Power Slave, but for me, coming to these albums new, as with all the other podcasts, I've never been a huge Maiden fan, and we've also had a 3-month break. It's been a while since I've listened to any Maidens, so now I'm listening to these 2 albums, and this, for me, could be peak Maiden.
I would certainly say Seventh Son is. For me, Power Slave was the first Maiden album that truly hooked me. That's my nostalgia favourite then.
Yeah.
But Seventh Son is my favourite musically, completely.
That's fair. I think for me, it's peak in terms of they, in both of these albums, sit in their formula, sit in their style so comfortably.
Yeah.
They are so confident in both of these albums.
Well, and that's the thing as well. So Maiden, prior to this, when we talked about Power Slave and Peace of Mind, it was very straightforward. It was, all their normal instruments. You come into this period, they start experimenting a bit more with electronics as well.
Yeah.
A bit of keys in there and stuff like that. It's all a bit weird. But before we zip into 1986, that kind of period, we're going to look between August the 9th, 1984, and the 5th of July, 1985. The World Slave. Summer. It's 12 months of summer.
Yeah, they called it the deep heat.
Yeah, pretty much. It was so hot, in fact, that it started in Warsaw, Poland, and that's where scientists first gathered data about global warming, because it was so hot that summer with Maiden there.
And that's how Maiden directly influenced the way we see the world today.
100%. If it wasn't for them, greenhouse gases we wouldn't know what they are. We'd think they're just a fart from a cow.
We still think that.
Well, it actually is. That's the alarming thing.
Yeah.
I described it perfectly. So yeah, it started in Warsaw. I can't say Warsaw and then Poland straight away. It's Warsaw, Poland. It doesn't flow properly.
Tongue twister for you.
Yeah, it is. I don't know why. But the whole tour was called the World Slavery Tour, and it was off the back of Power Slave, and it was in support of that album. Which Power Slave, being as great as it is, you think of songs like "The Rime of the Ancient Mariner" being played live, or Power Slave itself, "Back in the Village," all those kinds of things. It was a ridiculous amount of dates, though.
Yeah.
So the number of shows in total ends up being 189 shows.
Wow.
In that sort of less than 12-month period. They had 197 scheduled, but 189, that's a fucking lot, especially when crazy. You're rocking as hard as they are. During that period they played to the largest crowd of their career up to that point.
And it's a big set list as well, isn't it?
Well, when we go through Live After Death in a second, I'll do a quick précis of the set list, because obviously you've got both Peace of Mind and Power Slave in there, as well as they're still fresh really off Number of the Beast, because that's only 2 years prior. So in that span of 2 years, they've released 3 amazing albums. But they played the largest crowd of their career, and like I said, I don't know if that was beaten by Rock in Rio in 2001, but when they played Rock in Rio in 1985, they played to 300,000 people.
Bloody hell.
Which is fucking mad. They had a 30-foot mummified Eddie. They had a lot of pyrotechnics. It was one of their best stage shows they ever did. But Bruce Dickinson did say that about the tour, I never thought it was going to end. I began to feel like I was a piece of machinery, like I was part of the lighting rig.
Oh, man.
It lasted a total of 331 days. That's ludicrous. But with Live After Death, so it was at the Long Beach Arena in California, which I'm pretty sure is where, do you remember Avenged Sevenfold live at the LBC?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's where that was recorded, but not 100% sure. As usual with Live After Death, the artwork was done by Derek Riggs, and it's all the same people. But let's go through the set list, right? So let's make sure I've got the right set list here. So it starts with the "But We'll Never Surrender," the Churchill speech,
of course,
and then go straight into Aces High, which is it's a phenomenal
brilliant
intro.
track. Yeah.
2 Minutes to Midnight, The Trooper, Revelations, Flight of Icarus, Rime of the Ancient Mariner, Power Slave, The Number of the Beast. And I think that's it for that one. I'm trying to double check, because it's just showing me the sort of the old tape sides of it. Oh no, tell a lie. I've got a little bit more. Side 3, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Iron Maiden, Run to the Hills, and Running Free.
So that's a solid 12 tracks.
Yeah, but bear in mind, I think it also did have Sanctuary in there as well at some point, but that's just what's released on tape initially. So 3 sides of the tape were the Long Beach Arena show, and then the 4th side had a few songs from Hammersmith.
Yeah, so that's a fairly big gig, and some of those songs are so fucking long as well.
Well, Nature Mariner is over 13 minutes. Power Slave is about 7 minutes. Revelations is about 6.
And
Hallowed Be Thy Name is about 7.
Imagine doing that 189 days in a year. That's crazy, man. They must have been peak fitness.
Well, that was saying Nico McBrain talked about. It's on YouTube somewhere. You can find it. It might be on one of like the history of Iron Maiden documentary things they've done in the past. But he talked about how he would sit there during Rhyme and Ancient Mariner, and there was this gig, and I don't know if it was during Live After Death or if it was just at a very hot place in general. But there was a swimming pool out the back of the gig. So during Rhyme and Ancient Mariner, when it goes into the do 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 do, and that whole bit, and there's no drums, it's just that bass and occasionally a bit of guitar and Bruce doing the poetry over the top. Nico was so fucking hot that he just threw his sticks down, went out back into the swimming pool, started swimming in the water, and he was just trying to keep his ear on it because obviously he comes back in when it goes to the dig it again.
Yeah.
And like, so he's in there for like a minute or two, whatever, and stagehands had to come back in, like, come on, get the fuck back on stage.
That's hilarious.
Just like the.
I suppose the benefit of having massive instrumentals in the middle of your fuck off anthem.
Well, the problem is none of the others got a break. It was only Nico who did.
they must have turned back around.
Got sort of a couple minutes in the water.
They must have turned around and saw him completely drenched from head to toe.
They probably thought he was sweating there.
Yeah, that's true.
But I can't remember whether or not that's when a message from Ari happened as well. I need to double check that. So message from Ari was basically during a gig. Yeah, it would have been around that period because it had Nico on there. So they were doing a gig, and it got to a section where Nico had sort of like 5-10 minutes whether to do a drum solo.
Yeah, I think did we talk about this in the last podcast?
I think we did. So I'm wondering whether or not. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure it's as a B-side.
Yeah.
From one of them, or on a spec edition.
I'm pretty sure because I know this story. Yeah.
Yeah, Mission from Ari. Sorry, that's
so stupid. It's so funny.
Yeah, it was
I like that story because it just shows how self-aware they need. If you're doing big tours like that, man, you need to have some levity, and you're gonna get pissed off at each other as well.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. There was no levity there except for Bruce, who was recording the whole thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Once it's recorded, they can go back and listen to it and be like, oh, "Fuck me, we were being so stupid."
But yeah, as you can tell, it's like several months since I did the research on it. But I'm pretty sure it's on. It's got to be on a B-side from Power Slave, if the timelines all match up. So they do all that massive, arduous, fucking touring, and they round it out with the absolute amazing live album and live DVD, which people should watch. And then we get to 1986. Well, if you want to get technical, 86, because that's when they started recording it, which is as technical as we can be.
So how much time in between the tour and starting to record?
So, it doesn't actually give me a date as when they started to record.
Right.
So the best I can muster up is it could have been anywhere from sort of 7 months or so.
Huh.
So
man, that's not much time when you think about it. And these songs are well crafted as well. I know we're going to get into somewhere in time, and I think we'll have two different opinions on it. But anyone, like, I suppose a lot of bands, they don't start writing until they're in the studio, especially once they've had a bit of success. Like, it's different.
Breaking news.
Oh.
I can tell you how long they were given as a break.
How long?
They were given four months to recuperate.
Right.
So there you go. 4 months from...
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, for any band, like, I don't think that's a lot of time, and especially when you're talking about the Iron Maiden, when the songs are so intricate, there's so much going on, they're always flashing off how skillful they are. And yeah, I suppose to a point, like, when they get to this stage in their career, they can do it off the back of their hand. But man, I still think, like, they're hard-working guys.
That's the funny thing, though. The stress of that tour and sort of the toll it took is primarily the reason why there's no songwriting contributions from Bruce Dickinson.
Right.
Because he was just so burnt out at the end of it all. Although he did write several acoustic bass songs, saying that he sort of felt like he had to come up with their version of Physical Graffiti or Led Zeppelin 4 to try and take it to a different kind of level. But
Yeah.
Steve Harris's response to the acoustic bass songs is, he says here that he thought Bruce had lost the plot completely. But yeah, he also noted he was probably more burnt out than anyone else at the end of the last tour.
Yeah.
Whereas Adrian Smith stepped up and he brought in a fair few songs on that record. So where do you want to start with this album?
Well, I'll just talk. Shall I just give a bit of context and give my overall like sort of gist of it? So, as I've mentioned before in previous episodes, I'm not the biggest Maiden fan, especially compared to you. I don't know anywhere near as much, and I don't listen to these albums on a regular basis, especially not anymore. Like, metal used to be in my wheelhouse, go back a decade, and I used to be like constantly listening to just metal, and now I've gone much more indie, punk, post-punk, and I start listening to a lot more 80s stuff and 90s stuff because I think music was better than my personal opinion. But yeah, definitely far removed from the sort of music that Iron Maiden did. And even back when I was into metal, I was never massively into Iron Maiden personally. There's definitely some big tracks. It's the same way when we were talking about like Manic Street Preachers and stuff. I know some tracks and I really like those tracks, but I didn't know the albums and I didn't know their whole body of work. And that's what has been really enjoyable for me in this series. So never really listened to Somewhere in Time before. Definitely knew Wasted Years. Like, that's a track I knew and have always loved, actually. And it's always actually been one of my favourite Iron Maiden tracks. Partnered with the fact that I haven't listened to any Iron Maiden in 3 months. And really listened to any heavy metal in the last 3 months either. Since we were doing these podcasts. I don't know if that's influenced me at all, but I went into this album and I was listening to it, and also as a bit of context for listeners as well, we were going to record this podcast 3 months ago, so I'd listened to the album again then. So this is actually my second time listening through the album. Didn't honestly remember it much of it when coming into it again this time around, but I loved this album. Listening to it this time around, I loved it from start to finish, and it got me thinking, because one of my, I suppose, criticisms of Iron Maiden, especially when you get to this point in their career, is that they start to sound quite samey, in my opinion, and they definitely get comfortable in a certain formula, and they have explored and found their sound, and it starts to get to a point where we have Galloping Maiden, or we have Maiden with these strung out sort of power chords that all start around about the same point.
I think annoyingly that's one of the apocryphal things that people will say about Maiden.
Yeah.
And you can understand that. You think about their biggest songs, a lot of them will have, the prototypical Maiden song, whether it's Run to the Hills or, fucking You Go Into the Future and, you listen to 2 Minutes to Midnight or anything like that, or even The Evil That Men Do, which is a song we'll be talking about later in the podcast. Everyone's got that sort of sense, well, they just do the galloping, blah, blah, blah. But when you actually listen to all their albums as a whole, you can hear like different bits of evolution or different things. And that's what, and especially this period as well, when they're coming off the back of Power Slave and Steve Harris was sort of pissing about with more synth.
Yeah, and I think that's so. I think with Maiden, it's one of those, you've got to really, really dig them and be into them to then fully appreciate the difference. And I think if you don't really dive into them and you only kind of like them, or you like them quite a lot but you're not willing to really do a deep dive, it will sound samey. And I was listening to this album kind of as though I've never really listened to Maiden before, because it's been so long that I found this album pretty close to perfect. Like, I loved this album from start to finish, and I started to think, like, if no one had ever heard Maiden before and you showed them this album, I think they'd think the same thing if they were into heavy metal. And if Maiden had never released anything before this, you would be like, how is this so fucking amazing? Like, I think like what I'm going to start doing more when we do albums on this podcast is I'm just really going to look at I'm going to try and listen to it once, looking at the album as just the album with no context of the band or any past work, and then maybe listen to it again with the added context, because then you can go, have they improved, have they not? And I think this album gets a lot of flack from people, like people who don't rate it as highly as it should, because they look at it as, oh, it's in between Power Slave and it's in between Seventh Son, and also, have they improved, are they doing anything different, da 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 da. But if you actually listen to the body of work, it's fucking excellent.
So now that Connor's finished that preamble, we should probably go into the juxtaposition here, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
So again, like, context is key with it. So whereas Connor was never really a sort of massive Maiden fan, I was a massive Maiden fan, and obviously still am, and still regularly listen to their stuff. They're pretty much probably like one of the few metal bands that I will still actively listen to for the most part. Like, Metallica's every now and then, but Maiden's definitely much more constant. So you picked out Wasted Years.
Yeah.
I can honestly say, like, what I'm going to say is, I'm going to say I fucking hate that song, but I hate that song in terms of it being, like, I'm trying to think of the best way of putting it. I hate that song, but it's a Maiden song, so it's still better than the majority of the songs that I do actually genuinely loathe.
Right.
So it's a shit Maiden song.
But why do you think it's a shit Maiden song? Do you think it's a shit Maiden song because it's a popular Maiden song? Like, are you being a bit hipster with it?
No, it's not about the hipsterness of it. I think it's because, like, the guitar riff in it is absolutely fucking amazing.
And the guitar riff during the chorus as well.
But the guitar during the verse, it's boring, I think, is probably the thing I can say about it.
Yeah, but I think it's being simple because what Bruce is doing and driving is more important at the moment. Like, we talk about the Smiths a lot, like, because we both adore the Smiths. And one of my favorite things about Johnny Marr is the fact that he doesn't do a lot of the time, constant power chords and is a driving force on the guitar, because he lets the bass do its thing and drive the song, and then he does a lot of flourishing over the top.
Yeah, so that's not the issue I have with the song, though. The issue I have with the song is purely that as a song, again, apart from that main guitar riff and sort of the solo later on as well, and this is one of the songs that Adrian Smith brought Fully Formed to the band for the recordings. Yeah. It's just lyrically, I find it uninteresting. It's every rock band does this. It's usually on the second or third album. Like, we've had to wait a little bit longer for Maiden here, but they'll always have that one song where they talk about how hard life on the road is.
Yeah.
Like, you know, every fucking band has done this song.
Yeah, but Maiden, of all the bands, deserves to have a song like that more, because they've spent so much fucking time by this point on the road. It's a big part of their life.
Well, I'm trying to think of, like, great examples. Like, obviously, Nothing Else Matters, Metallica.
Yeah.
Is very much that whole being apart. Here Without You by Three Doors Down.
They tend to be good songs as well, though.
Not necessarily. What I know, Avenged have done one, but I can't remember what fucking.
The Avenged did one. Oh shit, I can't remember now. It's on their Nightmare album, isn't it?
No, you're thinking of So Far Away, but I think that was about.
It's Seize the Day. Seize the Day is about on the road. Seize the day. No,
that's just about living your life in the moment.
No, but he's traveling. He's like missing his loved one.
Yeah, that's just the music video.
Fair, all right. Maybe sue me for associating the music video with the actual song.
Well, music videos aren't made by the artist, but, like, you know, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I Gunslinger was sort of like that, but obviously about a soldier. But yeah, Seize the Day. granted, is fairly close to it, but like every band has had this song.
Of course.
And it lures you in as well because it's got this great guitar riff at the start. I think this is going to be something extraordinary, and then it just goes da 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 da.
But the chorus is so great though, and you sing along to it, and the harmonies in that chorus is brilliant. Bruce sounds amazing. So here's my thing with this album, and I didn't realise that Bruce didn't do a lot of the lyrics, and it's actually a lot of Adrian. So,
well, I think Steve Harris primarily writes the lyrics. I think Adrian Smith came up more with music on a couple of songs that he brought to the band.
See, there's something about this album lyrically that I find really different from every other Maiden album, or most other Maiden albums, and maybe that's what the biggest difference is between me and you here, because in this, apart from the first song and the last song, which are big, epic storytelling, like anthems, and they're long and they're massive and they're awesome, the bulk of the middle of the album is quite emotionally resonant. And lyrically, they're much more personal. It feels, they're just more emotionally resonant, and I really connected with that. And I think Maiden have this side of them that do that sometimes, but then most of the time, and what they're known for, and what some of their biggest songs are known for, is these kind of big, grand mythos like driven songs that are like, you know, they're about mummies, or they're about like big leaders. And granted, Alexander the Great is on this album, and that's a big, huge, epic song about history and about legend and stuff. And that's the Maiden that a load of people love. And when we get to Seventh Seal, that's what that album is like from start to finish. But the bulk of the middle of this album, it feels just a lot more personal. And very different from Maiden, and I really liked it. I just felt like I could connect to the songs a bit more.
Well, that's the thing, there's nothing, for me, there's like nothing wrong with it. Other than I think as well, like Wasted Years, I've probably heard a shit ton as well, so
yeah,
it's sort of that, eventually you listen to it so much that you want to blow your own brains out.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, like, musically there's nothing wrong with it, vocally there's nothing wrong with it. I just think in terms of, and again, it's based on context. You're coming into it with more fresh ears, I'm coming into it with knowing completely what I love about Maiden. And don't get me wrong, there's worse albums coming up, which we will tear apart. So.
Completely. But I think for me, what really, like, I also think I can be objective about this and still give it more credit than it gets, because Caught Somewhere in Time is a really epic, amazing intro song. Like, that is such a phenomenal intro song, and it's proper galloping Maiden, which people should love. It goes to so many different places, just some crazy guitar in that song. Then you've got songs like Sea of Madness, which is really much more poignant Maiden, but also like really hard hitting. The loneliness of the Long Distance Runner feels like a preamble to Fear of the Dark. When that song actually started playing, I was like, this sounds a lot like Fear of the Dark. And that is pretty epic. And then you got songs like Deja-Vu, which was so musically interesting. The riff was really cool. The song did really interesting stuff.
Which, funnily enough, with Deja-Vu, it was the only song where Dave Murray had a writing credit.
Right, that song was so phenomenal. And Stranger in a Strange Land, I didn't love all the song all the way through, because the first half of the song felt like a bit of a this is a Maiden special. Do you know what I mean? Like fast food Maiden, like they're doing what they usually do. But then it gets to the end of the song, and that is one of my favorite guitar solos that I've heard in so long. That guitar solo in Stranger in Strangeland is like really, I can't believe I hadn't heard it before, because back in the day when people talk about guitar solos and stuff, they throw out all these songs. You're like, oh yeah, Comfortably Numb, maybe one of the best guitar solos of all time. You've got Eruption, Van Halen, Look at This by Metallica, and Look at This by Maiden.
Or it's always Stairway to Heaven, wasn't it?
Exactly, yeah. But people never mention this, and it's so fucking great. Like, I think this is my favourite solo out of all the albums we've heard so far from Maiden, personally.
I'll tell you what mine is later. Mine's not on this album. Mine's on Seventh Son.
Right.
But yeah, Stranger in Strangeland, funnily enough, was one of my favourites from the album.
Yeah, I
So-
think it's a really great song, but I do think that that's more generic.
I think
One thing I will say in negative to this album is, especially in comparison to Seventh Son as well, is they're not playing us around as much. Like, they are definitely comfortable in a certain style on this album, and
Well, yeah, bear in mind, this is when they.
Sorry.
I was just going to agree with this when they're only just starting to experiment with that.
Yeah, and
So,
like what I mean though
Steve
is like
Harris was new to doing the synths.
yeah, completely, yeah. But like what I mean is as well individually between tracks, which we've talked about in albums before. I really dig. Usually, like I like when each track has its own identity and stands out from the other. That doesn't necessarily happen on this album. Like it can almost feel like one gigantic song.
Yeah.
But I didn't dislike that this time around. Like I really don't have much bad to say about this album. I think Heaven Can Wait was a pretty forgettable song.
That chorus.
Yeah.
I can't stand. Heaven can't wait. Heaven
Yeah.
can't wait for another day.
Yeah, that was
Like,
a
don't get me
bit,
wrong,
that was
it's
a bit,
well. It's just.
it was a bit
cheesy.
musical.
I'll tell you what, you do need to search up. Actually, there's a performance of Wasted Years. I'm pretty sure it was on German TV. Where they were forced to pretend they're playing their instruments over a backing track.
Yeah.
And so they all just start fucking around and changing instruments and shit like that. And you got Steve Harris like rocking out on the fake drums. You've got Nico McBrain taking lead vocals. With 2 seconds, I'm going to try and see. So it was during the Somewhere on tour years. So it's literally the tour for this album.
Yeah.
It doesn't tell me. It doesn't tell me which like show it was, but you can find it if you just search Wasted Years Live Germany.
Yeah.
They all just started taking the piss out of it completely. That's fun.
But yeah,
also-
I just think for me like this was like a sandwich of like 2 epic songs, like one a phenomenal intro, big long epic journey, and then the last song, phenomenal long epic journey, both what Maiden are known for, and then this nice middle section of about 5 or 6 songs that were just a bit more personal than what we've heard before of Maiden. I just really dug it.
Well, the funny thing is as well, a lot of the songs deal with the concept of time and space. And like Steve Harris said, like, we didn't come together for a concept album. I didn't go out and say to the lads like, let's all write about this one subject. It was just a case that everyone, was clearly had that sort of thing on their mind when they came to the studio.
Yeah.
But the funnier thing for me as well is the album's actually recorded in 2 different places.
Right.
So I'm trying to get the order right, but I'm pretty sure the guitars and maybe the vocals, I'm not sure, but definitely the guitars and that were all recorded in the Bahamas.
Oh wow.
And then the rest of
lucky
it was
them.
recorded. Yeah, I think they, from what I remember from reading Bruce Dickinson's autobiography,
They wanted a
memoirs.
holiday.
Well, no, I think the Bahamas, they ended up drinking a lot and not doing a lot of work and got bored shitless. But they sort of got the guitars and that done, and then they went to Holland, the Netherlands. They went to Wisseloord and sort of did the rest of it. But yeah, and that's the thing as well. Like, I think for Maiden fans, I don't, and this is me speaking on behalf of all sort of hardcore Maiden fans. I don't think it's a case that we hate the album. Like, the album, it's a perfectly adequate album. They do much worse later, and again, it's sort of one of those things. They have just come off the back of pretty much 3 golden albums. I would say that they've had basically 5 amazing albums in a row. If you go back to the very first album onwards, like that increase of, and those were increasing in sort of strength as well. And by the time they've done all those, they've done all the touring for that. It's easy to be burnt out and not have that same sense of urgency that you feel with other Maiden stuff.
Well, I will agree there. Like, one thing I was going to say, this tonally feels a bit different as well. It doesn't feel as urgent, especially when you go from Power Slave. It slows down. And
it's a lot dialed back.
This is them sitting in it a bit more. But I think, I can get why huge metal fans would be a bit bummed by that. Not necessarily bummed by that, but like, oh, it didn't quite reach expectations. But I don't know. For me, I think it's a nice change of pace, and I think it hit me right. Like, I don't know why it just hit me right.
Well, and that's the question that I should ask myself as a Maiden fan though as well. It's like, when you've already done Power Slave, where do you go from there? Because it's going to be very hard to top what you've just done doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And anything you try and do that's in that same vein initially is going to sound like a knockoff of what you're already doing.
Exactly, and they're definitely experimenting with lighter metal as well. Like, just tonally, this feels a lot more vibrant. Even if the song, like the topics of the song, aren't necessarily happy, like the guitar is just a slightly high, like vibrant pitch. They're vibrant riffs. They're nice and just happier than both Power Slave and Seventh Son. Like, it's sandwiched in between two more darker or more metal albums.
It's also sandwiched between two phenomenal albums as well. So, and that's always hard. It's sort of like a little brother stuck in the middle, as far as I'm concerned, in my opinion.
Yeah, but this is my point. Is I think this is a phenomenal album, and I just think it's just different to the other two. And maybe it's because of where it sits. Like, this is what I mean earlier. Like, if Maiden came out with this album, people would have a very different view of it. I think people situate where it is in history after Power Slave and before Seventh Son, and therefore diminish it because it just doesn't gel well between those two.
But bear in mind, my argument though isn't that it's a terrible album, like, by any stretch. It's a really good album. I think, again, it's that looking at it contextually. You're able to look at it from the outside, whereas I'm looking at it from the inside. We provide these two different voices here, Connor. This is how we work, man. So looking at it from the inside out, it's sort of like, the best way of putting it, do you remember like the old sticker books you used to collect? Like for football and that, and how happy you'd be get. Like, imagine if you got a shiny, another shiny, and then you've got a plain one. And then another shiny straight after.
Yeah.
And again, it's not because the album's crap. Like, I think there's a level that certain bands have. So whether you're sort of an old school Metallica or you're Iron Maiden or whatever, on your worst day, you can still be better than 90% of the musical community. And this is not their worst day by a long shot. Far from it. This is them still doing great stuff. It's just a case that the expectation is sort of higher than what they could have possibly delivered.
Yeah.
And I think that's where you have the issue. It's not a case of, Metallica releasing Saint Anger or Metallica releasing Load and Reload. It's not that sort of level of hatred. It's just a bit of a case of, like, there's this amazing album. It's backed on by an album that's more forgettable in Maiden terms. And you can sit there and you can listen to it and you go, well, that's phenomenal, blah, blah. But 5 minutes later, for me, I forget most of the album.
That's fair. I think for me, it's more like it's just a different style, but on the same level. So for me, it's if we go on by the NWOBHM analogy, it's drumming flat out is Power Slave, and then, oh shit, there's a bass line, so I'm going to take a dip in the pool is Somewhere in Time, and then going back into it is Seventh Son. And I don't think the dip in the pool for him was any better or any worse than the experience he gets performing live. It was just a different kind of great.
Funnily enough, though, I don't know how universal my opinion on the album is, because it was a critical success and it was commercially successful. So, it's still got 5 out of 5 of Kerrang, all music, who are wankers. You get a decent.
I just think, like, do you know you get like Mars bars and then you got the ice cream Mars bars?
Christ, years ago, yeah.
So
I haven't had one in a long time.
Ice cream Mars bars are as good as normal Mars bars, and vice versa, but they're just different. And I think that's what this album is for me. It's on the same level. It just is different.
It would be like if you came up to me and you said, "I've got Ben and Jerry's," and I'll be very excited. And then it turns out that they've got me like Chip Happens Ben and Jerry's, where it's got crisps in there. Like, it will still be lovely because it's Ben and Jerry's, but it's just not the flavour of Ben and Jerry's I necessarily look forward to as much.
Fair. So we're just different on that one, I think.
And again, like we've both said, the album itself is good. Yeah,
it's but just for me, it's more than good. It's great.
Yeah, Yeah,
So,
yeah.
how do we do this again? Do we grade before we move on to the next album, or do we do both albums and then we grade at the end?
We'll grade before we move on because else we'll forget.
Okay. Well,
So,
have you got
I think
have you? Go on, carry on. Sorry.
I was going to say I can probably guess your grade right off the bat.
I don't know if you will.
C minus.
Definitely not.
I reckon it's at least A minus.
It's this album for me is an A verging on an A plus, which I think is the highest I've given an Iron Maiden grade at the moment.
I can't remember now. I'd have to check back through my notebook at some point because I write it all down.
From memory, and bearing in mind I've got a bad memory, so I can't necessarily remember how much I enjoyed all the other albums, but this could be my favourite Maiden album so far, which is
I'm still glad you said so far there.
Yeah.
Because we got something coming up.
But it could be, like I said earlier, it could be contextually the fact that I haven't listened to them in 3 months, and this was a nice change of pace, and it was different Maiden to what I remember, so that was also a nice different flavour. It could be just the variety of it I enjoy a lot after having a big break. And there's no doubt about it, like we both agree it's a different kind of Maiden album compared to what they've shown so far. And I think it's mostly the more personal storytelling rather than the big grandeur of their usual stuff. I connected more with.
I think this is the difference for me actually, because obviously when we talk about Seventh Son in a minute, I think they were trying things on Somewhere in Time, but they haven't quite meshed it with their sound. Whereas
it's different
with Seventh Son, So you're a very, very solid A for yours.
Almost A star. It could be an A star.
Your favourite song is gonna be. Oh fuck! This is hard actually. I'm gonna go out. I'm going to limb on a song that you've barely mentioned just to see if this works. Yeah. Alexander the Great.
No, amazing song, really amazing song. Almost all the songs on this album, apart from Heaven Can Wait and Stranger in Strange Land, are on the same level. I think Stranger in Strange Land and Heaven Can Wait are a little bit below the rest of the songs, but Stranger in Strange Land is a little bit better than Heaven Can Wait because of the amazing solo.
Yeah.
I think my favourite song on the album was Deja-Vu, because I found that just a really unique song. Especially on the album, it's different to all the other songs on the album, but also I just found it like one of those. Do you remember in the first album there was that song? No, it was. What album was it? I've got to remember what it was. Was it in Number of the Beast? 22 Acacia Avenue. Do you remember there was that song?
22 Acacia Avenue, yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a weird, different song compared to all the rest of the songs. Deja Vu was like that on this album for me. Like, it was just... And to be honest, this album could be on the same level of Number of the Beast for me, which I think was my favourite album before this one. Like, I really... For two very different reasons, and they're tonally very different. It's like, if I'm in one mood, I'll listen to Number of the Beast. If I'm in another mood, I'll listen to Somewhere in Time.
I would say Somewhere in Time is a more cohesive album.
Yeah.
You think about Number of the Beast, you've got, Invaders, Gangland, Solar Eclipse, like weird little
moments,
trade kind of songs which don't feel they should be there.
Yeah.
My grade.
I'm going to guess that you're a B-/C+.
I was just going to go solid B.
Solid B. Okay.
So if we average out we'll average out and be kind of A- if we average both ours together.
Yeah, that's
because yours is on the cusp of A+, whereas mine is very just midline B.
Yeah.
So I'll settle for that. Do you want to guess favourite song? It's going to be easy.
Your favourite song is definitely not Wasted Years. Is yours Alex? Oh,
sorry, I was just doing the bass line to Wasted Years. I can still play it.
I think yours is either Caught Somewhere in Time or Alexander the Great.
Neither.
Oh, really?
Stranger in a Strange Land.
All right, fair. fair. And it's because of the solo as well.
Not necessarily because of solo. It's just like one of the few songs that actually sort of sticks with me.
Fair. I think the first half of the song for me is just a bit generic, but.
Well, I say like the 3 songs stick with me throughout the entire album. Like if I was listening to Wasted Years fresh, I probably would think it was a phenomenal song. But that guitar riff always stays with me. The chorus to Heaven Can Wait stays with me because I hate it.
Yeah.
Just that chorus. Like the rest of the song's alright. But yeah, Stranger in a Strange Land. It's not my favourite Maiden album, but they're alright songs. It's sort of like Peace of Mind. It's got some great songs on there. It's just it is what it is.
I remember as well that I really enjoyed Peace of Mind more than you as well.
Yeah, I think it's just because I latch on to things.
So, that's fair.
And that's the thing. So after that record was all done and dusted, and they released it in 1986. Martin Birch was the producer again, as per the norm. They went off. They did a bit of a tour, not as hectic as the World Slavery Tour.
They probably were like, now we need a break away from those tours.
Let's just do 2 dates, and let's have one in Hawaii and one in the Caribbean. And they came back to the studio in February of 1988.
And
they started.
So a nice bigger gap as well.
Well, that's the thing. The gap. So the gap between Power Slave and Somewhere in Time was the longest gap they had between an album previously, because every other album before it's each year.
Yeah.
So yeah, they got another nice little gap in this one, and they start crafting what I'm going to lay my cards on the table here, my friend. I'm going to call this album a masterpiece, and I don't say that lightly, and I've said it in 2 episodes in a row about 2 ridiculously diverse albums as well.
That's fair. So what do you love about this album, man?
So, I'm going to admit, when I first heard the album, all those many years ago when I was still very much Power Slave, I didn't like this album that much. Moonchild would put me off. Yeah. Because it's a weird intro of a song.
Such a weird intro.
Because it starts with that, like the keys in the synth, and then it's, I am he, the formless one. Upon listening to it again over like the past 12-18 months, I realised that actually it's perfect. Every single way. The songs, even though it's a concept album about the 7th son of a 7th son, the powers that he has, being raised and all that kind of stuff, the songs themselves all stand out as unique and different.
Yeah, so that's one thing I was going to point out about this album is the opposite in a way to Somewhere at a Time. Every song has its real clear identity, and they're really playing around with like different sounds, which I really enjoyed.
Well, and I think for me, there's only one song that's not as good as the rest, but isn't by any stretch bad. It's just not as great, which is Prophecy.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I also, I gotta admit, I'm still not a fan of Moonchild.
Yeah, Moonchild's one that's that takes a couple of listens to grow. I think if you cut out that very first part with the keys and synth that, and the song just opens with Bruce doing the I am he, the formless one, and it's straight in with it, maybe you would have liked that better, but it does build it up. It's sort of like this, it's going to be soft, it's going to be soft, it's going to be soft. No, fuck you! Right in the face.
Yeah.
And then straight away, you go into the next song, which is Infinite Dreams, which is fucking phenomenal in of itself. And it's a sort of, it starts out as a slow song. It reminds me of Children of the Damned from Number of the Beast.
Yeah, completely.
And to the point where I'm pretty sure it's even in the same key. Because I'm pretty sure they're both... Yeah, I think they're both in E. Maybe. I could be entirely wrong. We'll find out when commentators tell us. My ears are terrible. But obviously then gets sort of heavier throughout the song as well. And it also has that sort of guitar riff.
Yeah.
Which Papa Roach stole.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't realise that at the time, yeah.
Which, if you remember, has actually crept up before, because they used that same guitar riff on... I can't remember what song it is now, but it's on Killers, I think.
Okay.
And I made exactly the same point.
Yeah, I think you did.
But you go, and then you go into probably one of the most well-known
Well,
Maiden songs.
two of the most, like, these next two songs are
Well,
big anthems.
yeah, I think the Evil That Men Do is big amongst Maiden fans. I think Can I Play With Madness, which is the third song, that's one that sort of
That's one of the
crossed
ones that I would have known before I started listening to all of these. Like, coming into this album, I was like, oh, well, I know Can I Play With Madness, and I love Can I Play With Madness. Such a great song.
Exactly. And to be fair, that's the shortest song on the album as well.
Yeah, it's a long songs on this album.
And again, they all serve to tell a story.
Yeah.
And that's great. And it's all based on mythos. It's beautiful. And it's well crafted.
So this is, in many ways, opposite of Wasted Years. And one of the things, especially lyrically, is this is the other kind of Maiden that I was talking about. This is them full on going all for legend, history, like crazy storytelling, making up these characters and going from this kind of creepy mythology, which they're known for doing. And they're really doing that kind of like storytelling, almost not musical. It's like
Concept album.
Yeah, but this is Charlie was listening to a little of this earlier with me, and she was like, it's like an audiobook of Lord of the Rings sort of thing. And it is. They're really doing that kind of like fantasy.
And that's this week's Idiot's Guide to Music.
Yeah, and so I sit weirdly with this album.
Okay.
And it may be my mood, and it may be the fact that, like I said, because of 3 months away, and then I've listened to Somewhere in Time, and I really dug that album, and this album is so different from Somewhere in Time. And where I loved the more personal, relatable, emotional lyrics in Somewhere in Time, it's kind of jarring to go straight back into this fantasy aspect. I appreciated on this album that each song sounded really different, which I usually love in an album, and I always respect and appreciate the skill that Iron Maiden have, and they're doing what they do on this album better than they ever have potentially. Like the guitar is amazing. Nico is doing his phenomenal shit on the drums, but I think the fantasy aspect in this album is too much for me, and I struggle to relate to it. And it could be, do you know when you said the first time you listened to this album you didn't like it, and then it grew on you and now you love it? It could be that as well. Like, this could just be a jarring first listen, and then it grows on you in time. And I will have to admit as well, is as I was walking around the flat listening to this on speakers and sort of turning to Charlie, I was like, I just don't dig this. Charlie was pointing out the fact that I was dancing and like moshing a little bit. Like, I was still musically really enjoying a lot of stuff. I
think that's one criticism you can't levy at Iron Maiden ever, isn't it? It's like the music is always going to be great. It's just you don't necessarily get pulled into the album. And
that's the thing. It's none of these songs really pulled me in. Like Can I Play With Madness, I always loved, but I always have loved. The Evil That Men Do is another song that I actually knew before listening to this album. I knew I was going to love it, and still stands up. I fucking love it. And then there's a couple others, like Clairvoyant, I think is phenomenal. I hadn't heard that song before.
Bassline. Bassline. That's a fucker to play.
Really, Steve Harris, isn't it? He's just phenomenal. I hadn't heard that song before listening to it through again, and it's a really great song. But other songs, man, like Seventh Son and the Seventh Son, I really struggled with. I really struggled that song.
See, I don't
like the repeated line as well. It really bothered me.
Seventh son of a seventh son.
And just slightly different inflections each time, and it grated on me.
See, I love that. And again, I reckon if in 2 weeks' time you were to listen to this album, your opinion would flip.
Well, and here's
I
the
would.
thing. Here's the thing. Like when we were gonna record this 3 months ago, and I'm fresh off the back of listening to Power Slave, Peace of Mind, everything like that. I remember listening to this album and really enjoying it. I think I preferred it to Somewhere in Time, and I think I really, really liked it. So maybe it's just lack of exposure to heavy metal music and Maiden in general that I'm just not in the right mood to listen to some fantasy, epic, long songs.
When we say fantasy as well, I don't want people walking away thinking that it's entirely prog or it's very Rick Wakeman or anything like that. No, it's metal as fuck. It's just lyrically.
So metal. Yeah, it's just lyrically about things that don't exist.
So one of the factoids with Can I Play With Madness is, do you remember the music video?
Yeah, that's Schoolboys, isn't it? And do
you remember who plays the teacher?
No.
The chap who plays the teacher is Graham Chapman.
It is Graham Chapman, yeah. Oh man, love Graham Chapman.
What was, I'm pretty sure, it was one of his last appearances before he died in 1989.
Really?
Yeah, worse than that. And I've got another little quiz for you now as well.
Go on.
So, as we've probably mentioned before, Connor is a thespian. He's an actor.
Yes.
He has been in many things around the world. Now, The Evil That Men Do you know what that's from?
No. Not off the top of my head.
Shakespeare.
Fair. Everything is.
Julius Caesar. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones.
Fair. That's a good little play, that. Saw that one done at the RSC, mate. It's alright. It's alright. It's not my favourite Shakespeare, but it's alright.
So, one of the other things that makes me love this album above anything else, like in terms of Maiden, this album for me, musically, is their peak. As much as I love Power Slave when I was younger, every single person on this album is stepped up to another level, whether it's Adrian, whether it's Dave, whether it's Nico, but especially that bass as well. This is the first time that definitive gallop sound comes into it properly.
That's true, yeah.
So you always had the gallop there before, but it was always muddier. And I can't remember if this is when he changes to Fender for precision. I'm not 100% sure on that. That's a guess.
Yeah,
I think he might still have been playing some.
The production on this album is a lot clearer than their other stuff as well.
Well, yeah, but definitely. And what I'm saying with the bass though is, whereas before it sounds like a sludgy bass, on this album he's always got that amazing tone where it clack is the onomatopoeia I use.
Yeah.
Clack, 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 clack. Like, it's got this great tone, and the guitars on it are phenomenal as well. Everything's well produced. Like, everything's
and musically, the songs are written in a really interesting way as well. Like, some songs like change tempo in really unexpected ways. They dial back. And also for people listening as well, changing tempo mid-song is a really rare thing to do because it's uneasy on the ear. Like it's really hard to find songs that the tempo just changes midway through. And I don't mean people playing quicker. I literally mean time signature. That doesn't happen. But I think there was one song specifically on this album where it happens really clearly.
Sun, it happens a lot of times.
But like it genuinely goes from a 4/4 to something else. Really, like, and I was like, huh.
Yeah, I mean.
It's Seventh Son. It is Seventh Son.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The actual song, not it wasn't just referencing the album.
No, of course. No, sorry, yeah. And that's really rare because it's quite jarring on the ear usually, and it's also very hard to do and then play live, for obvious reasons. But yeah, they pull it off, and that's really impressive. That's really, really impressive. So I would never deny that the music on this album sounds amazing, and they are peak. They're at their peak in their skill. I think it's a lot of the time it's purely the lyrics that didn't gel with me as much. Also, I wasn't just in the mood for long songs. And like
It's
some
okay.
of the song, just forgive
There's
me.
only one long song on the entire album.
Well, like it depends what you class as a long song, but but like
Well, Infinite Dreams, Moonchild and Infinite Dreams, you could accuse of being long, 5 minutes 38 and 6 minutes 8 seconds. But Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, that's 9 minutes.
yeah,
That is 100% a long song. But everything else is about 4 or 5. No, anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes.
that's fair. But yeah, but I think it's more that Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, the actual song, really stood out to me as something I just didn't quite enjoy, and I found it impressive, but it's slogged on for me.
The bass line in the middle during the quiet part is a fucker.
Yeah.
And then when it comes out of that and goes into sort of more bridge towards the solo, as soon as it starts going, it sounds like it should be relatively straightforward until you realise that he's somehow fitting a triplet in there as well.
Yeah.
So it's and then the solo on that song is ludicrous. And that's Adrian Smith's solo, I think. And I don't understand how guitar players can play like that. I don't understand how bassists can play like Steve Harris either. And I try my best. I really do.
I think that's a good point. It's like what you just said there is him, for the sake of it, because it is impressive and it does sound good as well, but just adding a bit of technical skill into it. And I think
that's just natural for him, though. I don't think it's a case of like he's not doing like eruption.
No.
I think it's just natural for him. He'll go to play and like his fingers will just automatically hit a triplet.
But I think like
I don't know why.
But what I was getting at is like, and it may again be because of lack of exposure in a little while of both heavy metal and Iron Maiden, but it almost felt like, especially after listening to Somewhere in Time right before, it almost felt like they were doing too much on this album for me personally as well. Really impressive stuff, really skillful stuff, but just a bit too much. Also, like, as a bit of context for everyone as well, like, I've spent the last 3 months listening to a lot of stuff like Stone Roses, Smiths, Joy Division, my Manchester indie rock and post-punk,
you say
and a lot
that
of
Clash. It should be a revelation. It's not a revelation. We know that about you, little fucking wank.
But like that's and a lot of like Clash and that as well. And comparatively, those are really simple. Like all of those bands do really simple, effective songs, and I love that kind of music. So then it was really jarring just earlier on today when I woke up, listening to some Joy Division, to then go into listening to some Iron Maiden. And again, in terms of the amount they're doing in their songs, Somewhere in Time is notably more simple an album than this one. So I'm being fair to the album to just sort of go, there's a load of reasons why I may not have enjoyed it as much.
Put it this way, I made a guarantee at the start that by the end of this would be your favourite your favourite Maiden album.
Yeah.
I still stand by that at the time of recording, because I reckon you will listen to it again at some point over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
And it will click.
Yeah, maybe, and I'll tell you what, I'll give you that promise as well. I'll keep listening to it a few more times and see whether it hits me, because it definitely, like, I don't know what it was. It must, like, Somewhere in Time instantly gelled with me. I was walking around town today and I was just really enjoying life. Like, all I was doing was shopping for some Mexican food that I'm going to cook later on today. I went to Costa, had a coffee, walked through town, playing a bit of Pokemon Go, and for some reason Somewhere in Time was the perfect soundtrack. And I was just loving it. And the same thing just wasn't the same for the Seventh Son.
Whereas it's the opposite for me. I don't like life. I've never been happy with life. So dark fantasy, it all fits with me more.
Yeah.
Although there's no song called "The Cunt That Broke My Heart," which is a shame. We'll have to
write it yourself.
No, we'll have to listen to some Avenged at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, should I even joke about that on the air? Tough. It's too late now. No names were mentioned. It's fine. Yeah, going back as well, like, Only the Good Die Young. Not my favourite off the album, but there's a little section where it just goes where it's sort of before the solo, I think it goes.
Yeah.
I hate you, Steve Harris. But also, it's I just think personally, like I said, when I first listened to it all those years ago, I wanted something more straightforward, and I didn't get the mesh of it and the fantasy concept of it, which is why I was probably more of a fan of like Power Slave and Killers and the debut album and everything like that. But like when it did click for me, I realised that holy shit, there's something massive there, and the Evil That Men Do as well. Usually I'd recommend like people go out of the way, listen to the album version, stuff like that. The Evil That Men Do, the best version for me is Rock in Rio 2001. There's something Bruce does with his voice in the second verse, which is phenomenal. Like Bruce is phenomenal anyway, but
yeah, he is.
With everything else, either listen to the album or listen to the Maiden England version, which is when they sort of played a lot of this stuff on tour following this album. But yeah, for me, pretty much every song stands out. There's no song that I would sit there and go, that's a bad song or anything like that. In terms of
the prophecy is a bit.
Yeah, it's a bit sort of meh compared to everything else. But that's because so much has happened before.
Yeah,
and there's still, even though there's only 2 songs after it, there's still so much more to come. And especially when you go into the Clairvoyant. And that chorus as well. It's a time to live. There's a time to die.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, that's a banger.
Well, can you guess my favourite songs from this? Or song?
Can I Play with Madness, surely? Or the Evil That Men Do, you're going to change it now?
No. So it's a perfect draw between Clairvoyant and Can I Play with Madness.
Right, okay.
I think I'm more likely to listen to Can I Play with Madness on a daily level more often. But Clairvoyant was Sorry.
It's that thing of familiarity, isn't it? Like, you knew that song coming into its actual hook into the album.
And I genuinely do think, though, it's one of the best songs on the album. And Clairvoyant was such a really happy surprise.
Yeah, that's...
especially because I just didn't enjoy the prophecy that much at all. So when Clairvoyant came and sort of saved me...
well, it's the fact that the bass line it starts with as well. It's just like...
so cool. It's so pretty.
And I can do that, motherfucker. I can do that, motherfucker, 100%. Like, that's one of the few songs on the album where I was like, it's going to be hard. I'm going to do this. Yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it well. Do you want to guess mine?
Your favourite on the... Is yours Infinite Dreams?
No. Clairvoyant.
Clairvoyant? Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
For me, it's very close between Seventh Son and the Clairvoyant.
Right.
Like, I love Seventh Son. And again, like, I didn't used to. But there's something about the way that song builds, the bridge, the solo.
I think structurally it's a super interesting song. And what they managed to do, like I said, with tempo and stuff, is really, really cool.
Also, you were saying about, like, you don't like the repeated seventh son of a seventh son with a different inflection. I view it a different way. I think it's perfect as a chorus, because how better to get people to sing back?
Yeah, no, I get that. Like, I have nothing wrong with people repeating lines in songs. I mean, the Smiths do it constantly, and I love it.
Sing me to sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
Sing me. See, different inflections, same line.
No, I know. That joke isn't funny anymore. Whereas I've seen this happen. It's more than, like, I have no issue with people repeating lines if the line is really poignant and effective. Like, I think it's over where it's like, Mother, I can feel the soil falling over my head. That is such a heartbreaking line. Like, that could be the entire lyrics of the whole song, and it's really powerful.
You focus on the wrong part of that song.
No, all right, fair. But
the key part to focus with that song is the message of hope in the middle.
No, yeah, of course.
It's so easy to hate. It takes guts to be gentle and kind.
But the point is like, if the line's poignant and it really conveys a lingering message, then repeat the line. seventh son is a seventh son isn't a line that I find that interesting to
Yeah,
constantly hear repeated. Do you know what I mean?
how many choruses though repeat themselves, and they don't have to be poignant at all? Like, you're forgetting it's A, the title of the song, B, it's the title of the album, and C, it's the whole fucking plot is it's the seventh son of the seventh son.
No, I get it. I get why it's
he
there.
has the power.
I get it. It's just I just don't like. I just think there could have been more interesting.
What do you want him to do for the chorus of a song called Seventh Son of a Seventh Son?
Well,
And
like,
how can you fit Seventh Son of a Seventh Son as a phrase into a chorus without that being the entire fucking chorus, because it's so bloody long?
don't name your album Seventh Son of a Seventh.
But that's the whole plot.
But the thing is, it's like it's not many choruses just repeat one line over and over again. For one, like that was one of the points you made a minute ago, and you're not many choruses do that.
I didn't say just one word.
No,
Like
I'm not saying
choruses repeat.
Choruses themselves repeat, but that's fine because they tend to be like 4 or 5 lines of different stuff. That's fine. It doesn't bother me because they have a good context, and that's the point of a chorus. But it's not interesting a chorus for me to just have one line repeated, especially when that line isn't that interesting.
But not every fucking piece of lyric is gonna be this poignant masterpiece.
I'm not saying it's an issue with the song. I'm just saying I don't like it.
I think you're just being an idiot. Quite frankly. I can think of many things where the choruses are just like plain, and you're probably there going, well, it's not just seventh son of a seventh son.
Well, yeah, no, I suppose like Lithium, the chorus is like, yeah.
Well, the chorus to Smells Like Teen Spirit.
It's fine, but I suppose on top of it as well, it's not even like he's singing it in like a really cool melody.
Well, not as a massive melody.
It's more done like beat poetry. It's like, ooh, seventh son of a seventh son. It's more like William Shatner. Like,
fuck off. Oh, that is fucking outrageous. That is.
That's what I was hearing. I'm hearing it like Star Trek.
No, but he's doing seventh son of a seventh son, seventh son of a seventh son.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then,
when he's like,
and you've got doon digga doon digga doon doo doo digga doo digga doo doo digga doo digga doo, and the guitar like music.
I just think we disagree, man.
Oh yeah, 100%. And do you want to know what their tour was called? And you're not going to like this if you don't like these certain kinds of names. Their tour was called. Oh, part of the reason they called it Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, by the way, is it was the 7th album.
Yeah, no, I got that. Yeah. Not that dumb.
Well, you don't know that. The Evil That Men Do is from fucking Julius Caesar. How can I trust you with intelligence? It was one of the funniest things I've heard on Richard Herron's Leicester Square Theatre podcast. He had. Oh, fuck. I've forgotten his name. I think it might be John Lloyd, like the creator of QI and things like that.
Mm.
And they were talking about something, and John Lloyd was like, well, how many molecules are there in a orange? Or something stupid like that. And he's like, well, how can I trust... No, how many molecules make up a carrot or something like that? And he's like, well, how can I trust that you're intelligent if you can't tell me how many molecules there are in a carrot? It's like this really absurd thing. People like that do annoy me. So the seventh son argument is really quite moot, really.
Right, fair enough.
But it's seventh tour of a seventh tour, and now you can imagine the fans outside. Seventh tour of a seventh tour. Seventh tour of a seventh tour. I can't do the high rattle down.
Yeah, it's alright, mate.
I can just. I can pretend. Oh, I've actually got like spit on the side of my mouth.
Question: when you didn't like the song originally, did you still like the chorus then?
I don't know. I think it was just a case that I'm pretty sure I did, because that was the only thing you could latch onto that made any sense of that song. But I think it was more just a case like the entire album I wouldn't listen to outside of Can I Play of Madness and Steve What It Meant To. And again, like you, I think for me it was listening to the album all the way through and hearing like the Clairvoyant, for instance, and then I listened to the Clairvoyant like 10 times in a row, and I was like, listened to the whole album again the next day, and suddenly Infinite Dreams was one that stood out.
Yeah, that's fair. It
was
could
sort of,
be different. I'll latch on to something different each time I listen to it.
yeah, and then obviously my routine is pretty much always the same whenever I latch onto an album, is I'll always learn how to play it on bass. So then it's going back to the whole album again, and something else stands out. And The Prophecy never did stand out, and I doubt it ever will. But you know, a lot of the other songs have stood out, and even like Only the Good Die Young isn't the greatest of songs.
Yeah, I like that song though. I did enjoy that song.
It's a good closer. It's serviceable. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just I just don't think it's as great as anything that preceded it on the album. But again, it's always that barometer of what isn't great by Maiden standards is still great compared to like a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's how I always judge it.
And that's the thing. I feel like I've shat on this album a little bit, but the grade won't reflect that, because I'm mostly talking about, like, it's really easy to dig at what I just didn't cling on to in this album. But musically, I still think it was really skillful and phenomenal. And I do love the difference in each song and how each song has its own personality. And I do like what they're just able to achieve with, again, even Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. It's so interesting, and
see, it's stuck in your head now, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm very interested and very engaged by that time signature shift, and it's so rare in music. So I quite like that. Like, there's a lot to love in this album.
I'm gonna blaspheme a little bit now, but this is just trying it as an analogy. So Seventh Son of a Seventh Son, the song itself, is the master of puppets of that album. It's the one with all the changes in terms of time signature. It's the one that goes through all different parts. Not comparing the two songs at all. I'm just saying it's wrong. And it's the title of the fucking album, same as Master of Puppets. What about this then? Master.
But if they just repeated it over and over and over and over and over again.
They do.
They don't. They just say master. That's just one repetition, and then master of puppets are pulling this game.
It depends how you view it. If you're just viewing, it's only one word that you're using, so surely master, and then the second one's a repetition, then third. That's 4 repetitions.
All right, but even that's not the chorus.
3 or 4 times in the song.
But it's not the chorus.
Not including the bridge as well, where they repeat it over and over again until it changed to laughter.
But Jake, that wasn't the chorus of that song.
It's the end of the chorus of that song.
Yeah, but it's not the whole chorus of that song.
No, true, but still. Master of puppets pulling your strings.
Yeah, the chorus is just more interesting.
No, that's the pre-chorus. The actual chorus is just master.
No, you're wrong.
Well, well, no, the pre-chorus is quite clear.
What do you think my grade was on this album then?
B or B plus.
I was going to give it a solid B, yeah. And if I'm 100% honest, in that first listen, my first listen in 3 months, sorry, it would have been closer to a C or a C plus. But on reflection, I have to give it to the fact that the music is excellent. And if you got rid of and Bruce still sings amazingly. If you got rid of the melody of the way he sings sometimes, and if you got rid of the lyrics, I will give it a solid B, if not a B plus.
See, I don't know what your levels are here for like an A, B, or C. Because for me, a C would be an album where the best thing you could say about it is that it's got music on there.
No, that would be like an F or a D.
Whereas for me, like an F or a D...
If we're allowing Ds.
Well, yeah, that goes before an F, doesn't it? Yeah.
No, but
fucking alphabet man over there. Yeah. It goes D, X, Y, Z.
Like, if we're talking like, I don't know, like Bon Jovi, then I'm giving Fs. Or even maybe I'll give Ds and stuff. If you're talking Dead or Alive, it's an alright track. This is far better than that. That's my range. If it's music I dislike, I'll give it an F.
I think I'm a nicer grader than you.
Yeah, maybe. I don't dislike this album, but I don't like it either. And also, this is where I'm kind of grading on a curve as well, because I'll give like Somewhere in Time an A star, and I do really, really like that album, but that does not mean it's on the same level as, say, the self-titled Stone Roses, which is of course an A star. I think if you're grading them comparatively, then Stone Roses for me would be an A star, and Somewhere in Time would be closer to a B.
I think I'm more objective on the grading, because for me, anything that I grade an A is of equal or similar quality.
Yeah, maybe I should be more that way, but I think it's difficult for me because I'm closer to grading in genre, and then there are just different genres that I like more. So
I tend to think of it like we're doing like the Ebert and Sisko thing here.
yeah,
Of like, it doesn't matter whether your film is The Bourne Ultimatum or it's Inception.
yeah. See, I can't think like that in music. So I grade like, I think I'm closer to grading within genre. So if I'm going like, and Justice for All is an A star, then I'm also saying Somewhere in Time is an A star as well, because in terms of heavy metal, I think of them on a similar level.
That wouldn't jive for me. That'd be the wrong genre. I'd put Somewhere in Time in prog.
But I think it's still a metal. It's still a metal album because it's Iron Maiden.
And don't put Unjustice on the same level as Somewhere in Time. Unjustice is like one of the greatest metal albums of all time.
I agree. No, but I'm just
saying the album that killed thrash metal basically, because nobody could do anything else after it.
Don't get me wrong. Like I think Unjustice for All is better, and I think it's if there was an A star, then it would be a perfect album. Like if you switched it to numbers, I'd say Unjustice for All is a 10 out of 10, and then I'd go in the same genre. I'd say that Somewhere in Time is closer to a 9, which I'd still say is an A star. And then, but even if you compared from me now as 26-year-old Connor, if you compared And Justice for All to The Queen is Dead, for example, then And Justice for All is a B for me, and The Queen is Dead is a A star.
And Justice for All is a better album overall than The Queen is Dead.
Well, I just think you're wrong.
But
that's also, it's just because
it's also subjective.
It's subjective, yeah, and that's why I've got to grade it in different genres, because I just prefer indie, alternative, post-punk to heavy metal.
I would probably give The Queen is Dead a B+, and I would give And Justice an A+. The Queen is Dead, for me, there's fluff on that album, and Justice, there's no fluff.
I would flip it the other way around.
The only thing that I would say bad about Unjustice, obviously the production.
Yeah.
Without the bass. But we're not talking about that.
It's quite flat. No. We're now talking about the Smiths and Metallica.
No, that's the thing, actually. Like, that production should be such a negative. Like, you can't hear any bass. I love how sharp and trebly it is.
Fair.
It adds more to the aggression.
I used to, but I don't so much anymore. But again, I've grown out of it would be unfair for me to grade things not in their genre, because there are just different genres I like more than others, and I'm not a big fan of heavy metal so much anymore, which is why And Justice for All isn't as much of a big deal as it was for me anymore. But in the genre of heavy metal, I still would class it. If you're talking about heavy metal, then And Justice for All is a perfect album, and Power Slave is almost a perfect album. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I've got to think of it as different genres.
See, I'm the other side. Even though I've mostly grown away from metal, and like majority of things I listen to, obviously, are not metal. For me, I think I'm taking genre out of it completely. It's just the quality of what's there.
Fair.
So people, when you finally write up our Wikipedia page and you put all these grades together, just note that Connor's grades, you've got to put it in separate genres. If it was in the funk genre, for instance, Unjustice would be an F, because it sounds nowhere near funky.
No, yeah, but I'm just like, I didn't realize I was doing this, but now that you ask me, I'm like, well, to be honest, like, I can't say Somewhere in Time is an A, and then because then where am I grading Californication?
Well, that's the thing
because would I listen to, how often am I going to listen to Somewhere in Time or any Iron Maiden album compared to Californication? Nowhere near. So then every Iron Maiden album would go down about 2 grades for me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's when you said like closer to C. For like a C for me, that's an album that I think is objectively bad.
Yeah, see that's ludicrous to me, because if you think an album is objectively bad, then that's surely a D or an F. Like, what is an F for you? If bad is a C, what is an F?
An F would have to be something like utterly horrendous. So like anything by
that's a U. Ungradable.
No, that's my coursework in sixth form. That is. No, it's like Kid Rock would be an F at all points.
I don't even class that as music.
Well, that would be a U.
Yeah.
So if you can still class it, like Klaus Nomi would be an E or an F.
Fair.
Fucking Limp Bizkit would be an F.
Yeah, fair.
Like I've got loads of things, but no, for me, A. Fuck off, people. Sorry,
we're just quickly learning in this podcast that grading is pointless.
Oh god, yeah. Like this whole grading thing is ridiculous, but we still do it because it just gives a sense of finality to the whole thing. So
that's the thing, and I'm using it because I don't believe in grading an album anyway. I'm using it to sort of contextually go, this is where I think of this album in comparison to the other Maiden albums.
We should grade it in sort of Resident Evil style. So you always get a grade at the end of your playthrough on the game, but it would be S, A, B.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, and the 10 out of 10 albums go into S. I like that.
Yeah, so this is an S rank album for me.
So it's definitely not. It would still. If we're including S, then I'd keep my grades the same, I think.
Okay, there's a forfeit. If you listen to this album again over like the next few weeks, next month, or whatever, and you actually think, do you know what, this might be one of legit the greatest albums of all time, and it just didn't. Yeah. That's what happened with me.
That's fair.
If that happens to you, then there needs to be a forfeit for you.
But here's the thing, and this is where it gets silly. No Maiden album is going to be... I'm going to suddenly turn around and say it's one of the best... Well, actually, maybe I could objectively go, this is one of the best albums of all time, but it's not going to be one of my favourite albums.
Yeah, I'm not saying it has to be your favourite album of all time. I'm not saying it's going to supplant Stone Roses or anything like that. I'm saying that objectively you would go, actually, do you know what, this is fucking phenomenal. Hands down favourite Maiden album.
So it's like when people call Citizen Kane the best film ever made, and you're like, maybe if you talk about it objectively, but if you talk about it more... No
one on this earth legitimately believes Citizen Kane is the best film ever. Purely because the amount of people who probably watch Citizen Kane that are still alive are a minority.
Casablanca's better than Citizen Kane.
On the Waterfront's better than Citizen Kane.
That's fair. Well, I was just using it as an example of people knowing... We've come so far away from Maiden now.
This is what the podcast is about.
Well, it's actually... Sorry, no. A better aspect is when people rate Shawshank Redemption as the best film ever made on IMDb. And you go, actually, no, it's not. It's just your favourite film of all time.
People who like Inception.
I like Inception.
Yeah, but you like to pretend you're clever. That's the thing.
Inception's an excellent film.
It's not.
You're wrong.
It's a good film.
It's an excellent film. I'm not saying it's the best film ever made. I'm just saying it's a really well-made, excellently acted, brilliantly scored, great practical effects film with an interesting plot.
Oh yeah, that's the issue. The plot isn't interesting. The plot is basically shit. If you don't have, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Tom Hardy, DiCaprio, whatever, people would think of it on the same level as like, is it Tommy Wiseau, The Room?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, that's the whole point of getting good actors and stuff. If you look at
guy, he's got a spinny top. He's got a spinning top. It won't stop spinning. Is he in a dream or reality? Infinite dreams.
Fair. So this is an A star for you then.
Going back to Inception, it's basically the Matrix of its day. Everyone talked about how great the Matrix was. The Matrix, the first film, was good. The others were shit. Oh yeah.
It's also, you've got to compare it to other films, like all the other films ever made. And Inception is better than a lot of other films, almost all.
Oh, it depends. How many films, conservatively, could you say have ever been made?
I don't know.
That's the issue. You need to know these things. How many molecules are there in a carrot? You see what I do? I set it up earlier, I tuck it away and I wait. I wait like a shark in the water for blood. So, A+. They then went on to tour with Seventh Tour of the Seventh Tour, which I'm pretty sure I mentioned 6 years ago.
You did. Yeah.
Do you want to hear the track list on this one?
Yeah, go on then.
You're not going to like the opener. Moonchild.
So did they just do the same, the whole album?
No, nobody does that.
Alright.
How many bands do you know that have toured and just played the entire album
I don't know.
on a new release? None of them. They may do it on special occasions.
That's fair.
Like
But on the Nightmare tour, I swear they basically played the whole Nightmare album.
No, they didn't play Fiction. They didn't play Save Me. They didn't play. Fuck, I need to see what songs are on that.
All right. Okay.
They played Buried Alive. There's a lot they didn't play from that album.
Fair.
Danger Zone they definitely didn't do.
Fair.
I don't know how I can remember the set list from
Yeah,
that
I know.
long ago.
I was like, all right.
I just know exactly what I haven't heard.
Yeah.
But no, it's the thing, isn't it? Like you tour, you'll play what you think are the biggest songs from that album, and then you'll supplement it with other hits or songs from previous albums to make sure everyone's happy. But I would always want to tour the full album because I'd be proud of what I've just produced. But
Yeah.
I'm not in the music business. But like the Cribs, obviously, when they do the special nights, like I saw them do the entirety of Men's Knees, Women's Knees, whatever.
Yeah, but they wouldn't necessarily do that as a whole tour.
No, as a tour, you would just pick sort of 5 or 6 songs or something of that ilk. Which, to be fair, is what they have done here. So Moonchild, The Evil That Men Do, The Prisoner, which is still one of my favourite solos of all time. It might have been like the easiest solo you could have from any Maiden song. Still Life. If You're Gonna Die, Die With Your Boots On. Just Die With Your Boots On. That's what it's called. Infinite Dreams. Killers. Can I Play With Madness? Heaven Can Wait. I'm not going to sing all of them, I promise. Wasted Years. The Clairvoyant. So that live version of The Clairvoyant and that live version of Seventh Son, ridiculously fucking amazing.
That's good, I imagine. I imagine Clairvoyant would be cool.
Oh, we've actually seen a band live where this was recorded as well. Number of the Beast, Hallowed Be Thy Name, Iron Maiden, Run to the Hills, Running Free, and Sanctuary. So, sort of the usual suspects towards the end.
Yeah.
It was recorded at the NEC in Birmingham. So,
nice. Where we saw where we saw Red Hot Chili's for the first time.
Yeah, they didn't play all the songs off I'm With You. I'm really disappointed.
I'm not so disappointed.
No, it's I'm mocking.
No, I was just pissed off that they didn't play Don't Forget Me.
Oh, that was fucking hilarious.
I got so fucking angry.
I have never heard a man boo so loudly at Californication before. It was amazing. Like Flea's doing this little solo and he hits a chord and Connor's like, fuck yes, because he's thinking it's going to go down, down. Instead it goes do do do, and he's like, boo. Everyone else around him, yeah.
I was so pissed off.
I was honestly waiting for Flea to just like put his bass down, monkey bar up to you, and just beat you. But I'm pretty sure because they did a couple of nights there, didn't they? I think. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the night before, the night after, whichever it was, they played Don't Forget.
Well, because I remember on the set you were looking at the set list. They played it, and I was like, oh yeah, can't wait.
Oh yeah, because we went up on the second night, didn't we? So yeah. The first night they played it, and they played a whole bunch of different songs. That's what I like about the Chili's. Yeah, is they do switch it up. But yeah, I think we covered all things Maiden.
Yeah, man, nailed it. This was a really fun couple albums, and yeah, I'm sorry I disappointed in terms of Seventh Son. But it's kind of cool actually that we had completely contrasting opinions on both albums.
Yeah, it's not gone the way I imagined it, to be honest. It's like in my head it was going to be like, Jake, you've unveiled this box of magical greatness, and I'm going to feast upon these joys forevermore.
Cupcakes, just a box of cupcakes.
You can't eat yourself, you cannibal.
Alright.
I hope you tell Charlie a new nickname as well.
I will do.
Oh, Cupcake Connor.
And what are you, Ken? Muffin Man? No, wait.
I was just a muffin.
You were just the muffin.
Yeah. Just old Muffin Jake. And oh fuck, I don't know how it started that way.
I know. So for everyone listening as well, Jake before the podcast started went, oh, I've got an intro, and it may be one of the best intros I've ever come up with. Only
30% of that intro was what I thought of when I said to you. The rest was made up on the spot. Like I'd got as far as about I was actually just gonna have welcome to Songs That Made Us podcast likes to rock out with its cock out, like any great rocker or something like that. And then I realised as I was saying it, let's add more. Because my brain doesn't do my brain doesn't stop when it shoots.
Yeah.
Just kept going about us exposing ourselves to Mrs. Maybury from 3 Mothcombe Close. I don't know who she is. Although
Good
I know,
memory though. That was 2 hours ago, and you just remembered everything about that perfectly.
I don't know if she was called Miss Maybury.
I think that sounds correct. In my memory, that works.
But Mothcombe Close is easy because that's I live near there.
Don't give that away.
11 Cockington Close,
Oh,
Leah,
man.
Plymouth, PO6 8RF.
You can get some muffin murderers coming at your door.
If you are female, I am now single. So
That's what you're doing. Yeah,
yeah,
You're
it's like
single
how
and you
wrestlers.
muffins.
Well, it's like how wrestlers would used to sort of tell the female female audience members, like, this is my hotel room, or they'll slip them a hotel key. And you'd have like this gang of females like turn up at Ric Flair's door. And Ric Flair would just go, woo! Data boy! Oh god! Apparently he's got I don't know if he still has, I imagine he has. Apparently he had a massive dick.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note...
On that note, let us all be like Ric Flair's penis and grow as human beings.
Oh, beautiful.
And grow until we're at the age where we can murder.
Not so beautiful.
And when I say murder, I mean murder that pussy.
Jesus Christ.
Anyway, people, I hope you have enjoyed this Iron Maiden episode. We have enjoyed listening to the albums. We have enjoyed talking about them. And as you can see, we do this all for fun. Fun. Free. We don't want it to be free, though, so recommend it to your friends and family. Keep recommending it. Share, like, subscribe, search us, email us, Facebook us, tweet us, slap us with your testes, whatever it takes.
What?
Colin's especially into that one. We are going to make it to the top. And that's my bold prediction for 2072.
Nice. And I imagine it's going to go the exact same way as your prediction of Seventh Son of the Sevens.
Like I said, I have not given up as of yet.
Not yet.
Perseverance, my dear boy. We'll get there in the end, I tell you. Anyway, people. Peace out.
Peace out.
Stay.